Okay, so welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive. Like we always do, we're going to jump right into some fascinating source material. This time, we're tackling a text that tackles wealth inequality in America
Mhm.
and the way that certain people view the poor and the wealthy.
Yeah. I have to
So
get ready for some
it's a
it's my good opinions.
it's a very strongly worded piece,
Yes.
and really tries to call out some, I think, manipulations of public opinion,
Yeah,
which is something that I find really fascinating.
definitely.
So yeah, I'm ready to dive in.
Well, let's dive right in then. This text gets right to the point.
Yeah,
One of the very first lines says, "The wealthiest men in the world told you that our lowest paid neighbors are the ones hoarding your money, and you believed them."
right.
So how would you unpack that statement? Like, what is the message there? What are they trying to convey? Well, I think that the big thing there is this idea of sort of you can't always trust the people in power, right? And that I think there's this real sense of almost a betrayal
Okay.
in this, that these are the people who are supposed to be looking out for us, and
Yeah.
they've told us a story that is not true.
Well, and it seems like, like this text is really calling out a manipulation, right? It's
Yeah.
saying people have been kind of tricked into blaming the poor rather than the ultra wealthy.
Yeah.
Why do you think this kind of message resonates with some people?
Well, I think there's this idea of a scapegoat, right?
Yeah.
That we need someone to blame for our problems. And when you are struggling financially and you're hearing a story that says, well, it's those people over there who are taking from you, it's much easier to blame them than to look at maybe some of the larger systemic issues.
Right. Or to take personal
Going
responsibility.
to take personal responsibility, yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that there's that element, right? That we want a simple answer.
Yeah.
We want a simple target
Yeah.
for our anger and our frustration.
Right. And then it even gets even more complicated, right? Because it
Yes.
brings in this other element of race and kind of connects it all together.
Yeah.
And it says, because you couldn't stand voting for a black woman.
Right.
Whoa. How do
Yeah.
we interpret that in the context of wealth and social dynamics?
So this is where things get really, really complex.
Yeah.
Because what it's implying, or what it's stating outright, really, is that racial prejudice is influencing people's economic beliefs
Okay,
and
right.
influencing their voting decisions.
Okay.
And I think, you can't deny the fact that there's a long history of racial and economic inequality in this country.
For sure.
And so it's is raising this question, right?
Yeah.
Are these issues so inseparable
Yeah.
that you can't talk about one without talking about the other? Or is this text kind of, making too much of a connection or oversimplifying things?
Right. Well, definitely, whatever the actual answer is, or however we should interpret that,
Hmm.
it really does make you think about how all these different elements are connected.
Absolutely.
Right? Like wealth and race and politics and public perception. It's like this
It's all intertwined.
tangled web. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up here, what is your biggest takeaway from this text that you think our listeners should really think about?
I think the biggest takeaway is to really examine the stories that we're being told
Okay.
and to ask ourselves, who benefits from this story?
Mhm.
Whose voices are missing?
Yeah.
Are we getting the full picture? And
Uh-huh.
especially when it comes to really complicated issues like wealth and social dynamics,
Yeah.
we have to be willing to think critically
Right.
and to question the messages that we're given.
That's a really good point to end on.
Hmm.
Be critical of what you're hearing and ask yourself those questions. Whose voices are missing? Who benefits from this?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for joining us on another deep dive, and we will see all of you next time.
Thanks for having me.